All right, let's get right into it. We're about to break down a system, a kind of blueprint, really, that can help you absolutely nail those IGCSE writing tasks. The reviews and emails. And here's the best part. This is designed to work even when you're staring at a topic you feel like you know absolutely nothing about. So yeah, let's dive in.
You know that feeling, right? That sinking feeling in your stomach when you turn over the exam paper. You read the prompt and your mind just goes completely blank. Panic starts to set in. Honestly, it's probably the biggest fear for any student in a writing exam. But what if I told you that whole fear is actually based on a huge misunderstanding of what the exam is really about?
And here it is. This is the one big secret that honestly changes everything. Examiners, they don't check your facts. They couldn't care less. They're there to assess your writing quality. Let that sink in. They are not grading your knowledge. They're not grading your life experience. They are grading your ability to write well. So what does that mean? It means a brilliantly written, super detailed review of a cave diving trip you totally made up will score way higher than a vague, boring review of that restaurant you go to every single week. See? You don't need experience. What you need is a method. So let's get into the examiner's secret, what they're really looking for. Let's pull back that curtain. What is an examiner secretly hoping to see when they pick up your paper? I'll tell you what it's not. It's not factual accuracy. It's all about making your writing feel authentic and real. And believe me, there's a very specific way to do that.
Okay, think about the psychology here for a sec. When we panic about a topic we don't know, what's our first instinct? It's to write vaguely, right? We do it to avoid being wrong. But here's the problem. Vague writing always scores low. So, the solution? You have to confidently invent specific sounding details. This is the most crucial point, so listen up. Specificity gets rewarded, not accuracy. That's the whole game.
All right, now for your universal writing toolkit. This is how you're going to generate awesome ideas from pretty much nothing. To pull this off, you need a set of tools that works for any topic, a way to just pull convincing ideas out of thin air. And guess what? We're going to build that toolkit together right now, starting with a super simple way to just get your brain fired up.
Okay, first tool. It's called the 4-question method. Before you even think about writing a single sentence, I want you to spend just 90 seconds. That's it on these 4 questions. First, what did it look or feel like? Physically. Second, what's one moment that really stood out? Third, what didn't work so well? What felt kind of off or uncomfortable? And last, number 4, who would actually benefit from this thing? Seriously, just answering these 4 questions gives you all the raw material you'll ever need to get started.
Next up in the toolkit, your sensory anchors. Now, what are these? Think of them like pre-prepared, universally believable details that you can just plug into any description of a place or an event. The reason they work so well is because they tap into how any new environment feels to someone visiting for the first time. And that feeling, it's instantly relatable and super convincing to an examiner. So, here's your list of anchors to choose from. You've got things like the entrance or the arrival, the scale or the size of the place, the light, the sound, the temperature, even just the movement of people around you. Now, here's the secret. You do not need to describe all of them. No way. The trick is to just pick 2, maybe 3, and describe them with absolute laser-like precision. That's what creates a description that feels totally real. And for the final piece of our toolkit, we have what's called the contrast move. This is so powerful. These are basically sentence structures that create the illusion that you're making a really deep personal observation. All you do is compare what you expected to find versus what you actually found. Or you could compare what everyone else seemed to be feeling versus what you personally noticed. It's such a simple trick, but wow, it makes your writing sound incredibly authentic. Okay, on to the blueprint for a perfect review, a step-by-step structure. We have our tools, right? We've got the 4-question method, our sensory anchors, and that snaky contrast move. Now let's see exactly how to put them together to build a perfect 4-paragraph review for any topic they can throw at you. So, your first paragraph. This is all about the arrival and that first impression. You're going to start strong by immediately using a contrast move. What you expected versus what it was really like. Then you lock that feeling in place by attaching one specific sensory detail. Doing this right from the start immediately sets your review apart from everyone else's. Okay, let's break down this fixed frame for your opening. It's like a fill-in-the-blanks template. You start by stating a common expectation. So something like, museums tend to promise quiet reflection. Then you hit them with your contrast, your invented experience. But the science museum, encountered for the first time, well, it suggested something far more chaotic. And finally, you drop in your sensory anchor. The entrance was just a cacophony of echoing voices, which created this feeling of overwhelming energy. See how that works? Boom, you've just created a super compelling opening from literally nothing. All right, on to paragraph 2. This is where you get into the description using your selected details. So you're going to choose 2 of your sensory anchors and really develop them. And remember the golden rule here. Do not just make a list. That's boring. You need to pick one, let's say the quality of the light, and describe it. Then you pick another, maybe the sound, and explain the effect that sound had on you. And here's the fixed frame to guide you through that second paragraph. You could start with something like, the most immediate impression was the sharp clinical lighting, and then follow it up with, further into the exhibition, the low hum of the machinery became noticeable. You see, this structure kind of forces you to connect your observations to a personal feeling, which is exactly what makes it sound so insightful. Okay, paragraph 3. This is where you introduce the honest fault. And trust me, this is such a powerful step. Why? Because including a small weakness makes your whole review feel so much more believable. And it's actually really easy to do, because you can just use universal flaws. You know the ones. Was it too crowded? A bit too expensive? Poorly organized? Just pick one and describe the impact it had. And this frame right here helps you introduce that criticism in a really sophisticated way. So for example, you could write, that said, the long queues were noticeable because they undermine the museum's otherwise calm atmosphere. You see what you did there? By linking the weakness back to one of the place's strengths, you create this really balanced, really intelligent critique. And examiners absolutely love to see that. And finally, we close it all out with paragraph 4, the targeted recommendation. And get this requires literally zero real knowledge of the topic. All you have to do is analyze the strengths and weaknesses that you've just invented and decide who would get the most out of it. It's that simple. This final frame really ties the whole thing up with a bow. You could write something like, the Science Museum is best suited to curious teenagers who value interactive displays. But, those expecting a quiet, traditional museum might find it a bit overwhelming. And just like that, you've delivered a clear, logical recommendation. It's the perfect way to conclude. All right, let's switch gears and talk about the blueprint for a perfect email. Here, it's all about creating a personal connection. Now, that core principle of inventing specific details, that absolutely still applies, but the goal is a little different. So we're going to need a slightly different toolkit and a new 3-paragraph structure to really get those top marks. So for emails about an activity, instead of sensory anchors, we're going to use something called the moment generator. These are 5 types of moments that you can always invent. You've got the moment right before it started, the moment you realized it was different than you expected, the moment something went just a little bit wrong, the moment you just observed someone else, and the moment right after it all ended. For your second paragraph, all you do is pick 1 or 2 of these and really flesh them out with personal-sounding detail. This right here is the absolute key to a great email, deeper reflection. So think about it. You've opened your email in paragraph 1 with a warm, personal tone. In paragraph 2, you've described a specific moment from your activity. So what's left for paragraph 3? This is where you connect that experience to a universal lesson, something like the value of preparation or what it feels like to work under pressure. This is what gives your email real depth and makes it sound genuinely reflective, not just like you're listing things. Okay, we've covered a ton of ground. So now let's boil all of this down into a simple, unforgettable emergency plan. This is your 2-minute drill for when you're actually in the exam room and that clock is ticking down. Here it is, your 2-minute drill. It's 5 simple steps. Step 1, a quick check. Is it a review or an email? Step 2, spend just 90 seconds on those 4 questions. Step 3, pick your 2 sensory anchors for a review or your 2 moments for an email. Step 4, start writing, using those fixed frames as your guide. And finally, step 5, and this is the golden rule. Never, ever, ever write a general sentence. If a sentence feels even a little bit vague, just stop and add one specific detail. And if you remember only one thing from all of this, let it be this. Vague writing scores low, no matter the topic. But specific writing, it scores high every single time. Look, an examiner can't tell the difference between a real memory and a detail you've invented with confidence and precision. They just can't. But what they can always tell is the difference between a writer who carefully selects and develops their ideas and one who just waffles. It's that simple. So the only question left is, what specific detail are you going to invent first?